Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 384 featuring Bill Plympton. I can't tell you how excited I am to have Bill Plympton on the podcast. I met him, I think it was 2006 or 2007. We were both speakers at an event, but he is one of the best animators in the world. I am just absolutely in love with his work that I saw the first time on Liquid Television back in the 90s. And it just blew my mind what he does. And he literally hand draws every frame, and it's just an absolutely incredible stuff. And his style is incredible. His work is incredible. Led to 2 Oscar nominations. And it's just absolutely incredible guy, and a super nice guy. And I was excited to have him on the podcast because he, at the talk that I saw him give back in Guadalajara, he gave some incredible advice, and I thought it was super cool. So, Kristen, what do you think of Bill?
Yeah, well, his story is amazing. It's an incredible podcast, but he knew he wanted to be an animator at a young age of like 8 or 9, and he constantly pursued that dream. And he was able to express his funny side through art and drawing, he realized. So, and his, like you said, his style of animation relied on his skill as an illustrator, because he did draw every frame, and that's what he developed early in his career. And he also gives great advice on being an independent animator and just not getting stuck in the studio system. So that was very interesting. And he shares some great stories of the kind of rough and tumble days of video pirating back in the day. That was a cool one. And then he also just broke the boundaries of cartoons, not just being for kids, but for adults as well. So,
right.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I really like his style, and his sense of humor is definitely somewhat twisted, but that's the best part of it. And he's just a really interesting person, and I was really honored to be able to have him on. I literally just cold called him and see if you could do it, and he said yes. So I was really honored to do that. All right, we have a couple of quick announcements we want to put out there. First thing is V-Ray 6 for Macs is out, and it's got a lot of great new stuff in it, including the new procedural clouds, geometry patterns, scatter tools, V-Ray decal and displacements, new object hierarchy, and a whole bunch more. V-Ray 6 is super cool and definitely worth checking out. So make sure to go to chaos.com and check out all the new features, and give it a try if you'd like to. We have 2 events happening, Kristen. What's going on?
Yeah, so both events are happening July 28th, and you can find these at chaos.com/events. The first one is a free webinar, and it's about creating detailed exteriors with V-Ray 6. So, as they say, explore the unexplored with the new features in V-Ray 6. And then the other one on July 28th is the Chaos Campus Live Show, which will be episode 5, and it will be with host Nikos and Georgie Zekov, and they will deep dive into Chaos Phoenix and the life in CG. So don't forget to check those out.
Chaos.com/events. Again, those are going to be really great. Go check those out. If people want to know more about the podcast, Kristen, where can they go?
You can go to facebook.com/CG Garage Podcast or chaos.com/CG Garage. And if you'd like to watch us, go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV.
Perfect. And if you have any questions, don't forget to email us. labs@chaos.com is our email. And if you have any suggestions or anything else, that would be great. Of course, leave us a review on Apple Podcast, and a rating would be very much appreciated. But for now, please enjoy episode number 384 with the amazing Bill Plympton.
Welcome to another CG Garage, where the Chaos Group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passe. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
Well, I think I mentioned to you that last I met you about 15 years ago. Probably you were both speakers at an event in Guadalajara.
All right.
which
Yes.
was which was a lot of fun. And I was really kind of super interested in your talk. I've always been a huge fan of yours ever since I was
Thank you.
young, watching Liquid Television.
That's right.
So
MTV. Yeah.
yeah, so
Hey, do I have to be closer, or can you hear me okay?
you can be a little closer. That would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay. So my big thing about that event, which I still is vivid in my mind, was your talk was not what I expected. It was a really amazing talk, and I still think about you giving people some incredible practical advice about being an animator and how
Right.
that works. So I'd love to be able to share that same experience with some of my listeners and give them a little bit of a background. But
Sure.
let's start with your actual background. What got you into animation? What was your fascination with animation?
Well, like most everybody today, including John Lasseter and Nick Park and everybody, it's Disney. I was watching Disney films at a very young age, and thought that was magical, especially the funny ones. Goofy, I loved the Goofy adventure ones. I thought they were very funny. And my dad was a very funny guy. He worked at a bank, but he was also very funny at parties. And I was very jealous. I said, "Yeah, I wish I could make people laugh like that." But I couldn't with my talking, but I could with my drawings. So I was inspired by the Goofy shorts to make cartoons that are funny, drawings, little drawings, like New
Right.
Yorker cartoon kind of thing. And then, of course, I got into Warner Brothers and Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner and Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. I love Daffy Duck. He was my favorite. I think Goofy and Daffy Duck were my two favorites. And that's where I decided at a very early age, I think it's probably 8 or 9, something like that, that I wanted to be an animator for Disney. That was my job. That was my career that I wanted to do. And so I was drawing all the time. I loved to draw. I was the class artist, that typical thing. And I even had a few cartoons printed in the school newspaper. So I felt like, wow, I'm on my way. I remember going down to Disneyland. I think I was 12 or 13, I believe. And I stayed with my aunt who lived in Long Beach, and she took me to Disneyland, and they had a bookshop there. And there was this book called Disney. No, I'm sorry, Animation. And it was written by, I forget the guy's name now, but it was a really great book about how Disney makes their films and all their new productions. And it was an expensive book. It was like, I think $12, which back then was a lot. And my aunt said, because my folks gave me some money to go on the rides. And I said I wanted to buy the book. And my aunt said, "Aren't you going to go on the rides? All the crazy Mad Hatter teacup and all that stuff." I said, "No, I want this book." So she was surprised how diligent, how stubborn I was in wanting to be an animator, that I would give up all these cool Disney rides. So I think that was a hint that I was really firm in my career choice, that this was for me. In fact, my folks were very, very supportive of my drawings. So they would give me drawing boards and stuff like that, but they thought that was just a hobby. They didn't think it was something that I could really make money at, and they never accepted it. I mean, my dad's a banker, so and they grew up in the Depression, and they knew that getting a good, solid job was the key to happiness. And but I kept drawing, and even when I won the Oscar, they thought that was just a fluke. They didn't think that was really a good career move. And I remember years later, it was like 2000 and about 2000, something like that. We were at a beach resort, and we're watching TV, and up comes my Geico insurance ad with the bulldog. And they went, "What? you did you did a cartoon for Geico, and then they finally realized that, hey, you know what? Maybe he should stick to this cartoon thing and continue working because I'm on TV with Geico. So that was big, a big turning point for my support from my parents. But anyway, when I went to Portland State College and I was dying to learn how to do animation, I even bought that Preston Blair animation book, which I think is one of the best books on animation ever, even today. And he was the guy who did Red Hot Riding Hood, and he did a lot of Fantasia cartoons, some of the best animation in Fantasia. He was a brilliant, brilliant artist. And I learned a lot about that, especially the movement and timing and things like that, but not the technical side. How to run a camera, where to get the film, where to process the film. You get an answer print or a check print or a negative. It's so complicated. But the problem was around that time, which is 69. Sorry, animation was dying. Walt Disney died in 66, I believe, and Warner Brothers had stopped doing their cartoons, so there was no real career going on. And I think Disney was actually bankrupt. They were going to sell off the whole company and quit the business. So I was very, very disappointed. So I decided to move to New York to become an illustrator. And then I went a year at School of Visual Arts to learn animation. I thought, oh, wow, I'm going to take an animation class at SVA, and then I'll learn how to make my films, without working for Disney. And so I got this animation class. It says a good class, but the teacher was really lame. For example, he'd wander in the middle of the class and say, okay, today we're going to make a film about green. And he said goodbye and walked out. And I said, what the hell is that? Why am I here? I wanted to learn how to make a film. And the guy was never there. It was a big waste of time. I did a bunch of experiments that were really, really big failures because I didn't know how to run a camera, how to load the film in the camera, how to do focus and all this stuff. So I gave up and decided to be an illustrator and a cartoonist because I knew I could make people laugh with my cartoons. I was a good illustrator. I knew how to draw pretty well. I'd done a lot of work in Oregon, a lot of commercial work in Oregon, caricatures and things like that. And so I took my portfolio around and I got work. And, there were some big magazines, House Beautiful and National Lampoon, Rolling Stone, New York Times, Penthouse, Playboy, all the men's magazines. I did a lot of work for them. And but I still had that urge to make an animated film. I did one experiment. It was called Lucas the Ear of Corn. It was a story written by a friend of mine. And I asked him if I could make a film out of it. And it was just an experiment. I had an 8mm Bolex, those little tiny Bolex things. And I put it on a tripod and I moved paper around on the floor to illustrate the story of Lucas the Ear of Corn. It's kind of a primitive look, almost like, South Park. It's that kind of real primitive kind of animation. And I shot it, and I never figured out how to edit it together or to put the sound on there. So it just kind of laid to waste there just as a piece of film. So I gave up again. I said, it's just impossible. The technology is just beyond me. And so I went back to illustration. And then in 1985, I was contacted. Am I going on too long here?
No, keep going. That's fine.
Okay. By a woman I had done some work with called Valeria Vasilevsky. And she had a script by Jules Pfeiffer, who I knew. He was a buddy of mine. And they wanted to make a short film out of it called Boomtown. And I said, "Oh, wow, can I do the storyboards?" And she said, "Well, no, we want you to direct it and animate it." And I said, "Yay, that's exactly what I want. I want to actually make a film." And she said, "There's no money. We don't have any money to pay you." I said, "I don't care. I still want to do it." Because there was a woman called Connie D'Antonio who was on the project, and she had made films before. She knew the whole process. So she was my teacher in animation, how to make an animated film. And she walked me through the whole step, the sound recording, the sound editing, the sound effects, all that stuff, which is really, really difficult and expensive too. And so I did the film. It's called Boomtown. It's an anti-war film, anti-nuclear film. And surprisingly, it still gets shown around today. We just had an invitation. Someone wanted to show it for the war in Ukraine.
Right.
And so we did the film, and we did some. I had to, raise some money. We had work in progress screenings all over, and we sold original art. So we had enough money to make the film. And it came out. It was actually kind of a success. It played with a London, England film called Bauman's Lunch. This was in '86, I believe. And it played all over America. It was a short before the feature, and it got really good reviews, and I won a bunch of awards and went to Annecy because of that film. And so once I did that, I said, now I'm going to finally make my film that I want to make. And so I took these sketches of a guy's face, really distorted facial features. And I thought, okay, maybe I can do something with this. So I had him sing a song, and I've experimented with how weird I could make the face, change. And I think I did the film in about a month. I did 36 gags, facial gags. And the ones, when I animated, I didn't like, I tossed them out. I ended up with, I think, 25, 26 gags, something like that. And I put it together. It's a real stupid film. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
I've seen it. Yeah.
There's no plot. There's only one cut. There's only one character. He sings a bad song. He sings it badly, and his face gets weird. That's the premise of the film. So it's a real nothing film, quite frankly. And I remember the first time I showed it was in a CIFA screening here in New York. And these were all the top animators from New York were at the screening. And it was a bunch of other films. It was a competition. And I was in the back because I didn't know any of these people. I found out later who they were. And because I wanted to run out when people started hissing and booing. I wanted a quick escape. And after 3 or 4 seconds, people started to laugh. And I can't tell you what a high that gave me, because all these years of doing illustrations and gag cartoons for National Lampoon and Soho News and places like that, I never heard people laugh at my cartoons before. And to hear a whole room laughing was just the biggest high in the world. And I felt like I was levitating. I just went into another trance, another state of consciousness. And afterwards, they came over to me and said, "Are you Bill Plympton? Did you make that film?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." And they said, "Well, let's go out and have a drink and talk animation." I just felt, this is what I wanted all my life. I was almost 40. I think I was 39, and so I wasted a lot of time doing print. But to hang out with all these animators and they answered all my questions of how I did this and how do you do that. And the next day I called all my print clients, magazines and newspapers. I said, "I'm quitting print. I'm going into animation. I want to be an animator." And they all said, "Are you nuts? Animation's dead. It's a dying art form. Nobody does animation anymore. It's all Hanna-Barbera, which is crap." I said, "No, I think I can do it." And the film played in Annecy, which is this big animation festival in France, probably the largest animation festival in the world. And after the screening of the film, they heard everybody laughing at the film, and people come up to me and say, "Well, I'm from BBC. Here's $5,000. Would like to buy the rights to your film." And Canal Plus came up and offered me a lot of money, and MTV offered me a lot of money. All these people wanted to show the film. And, when I made the film, I never thought of that as an option, that I could sell the film and make money to make other films. I just was happy to be making animation, hoping I could show it someplace. And so, right off the get-go, I was making money on this little 3-minute film that made no sense, but somehow people liked it. So that's how I got my start.
That's amazing. And I think what's incredible is that your style of animation was relying completely on your skill as an illustrator, because you draw every frame. Right?
Well, that's one of the good things about my early career as an illustrator was I did develop a style that was very fast, which is important in animation, and very sort of impressionistic. It was a unique style for cartoons. And number two, I did develop a sense of humor, of telling a joke, because I did have a comic strip in the Soho Weekly News that was reprinted in about 20 other newspapers. And I did a lot of gag cartoons for National Lampoon and people like that. So I knew how to develop humor. I had a stockpile of gags. I mean, a big stockpile of gags, of ideas that I wanted to develop, even film ideas, animation ideas that I wanted to develop. So I was ready. When You Face hit, I was ready to do a lot of animation. And I must tell you, I'll be honest with you, what happened to me is not usual. Usually the first film is pretty bad. And some of these experiments I did in college and at Lucas Sierra Corn was really bad. But the first real film that I did, it was really, 35 millimeter, was a big success. And I wasn't ready for it. I was really shocked. I got nominated for an Oscar. It won prizes all over the world. And like I say, it sold to a lot of markets. But I really wasn't prepared for, like, the Oscars. I should have gone there with meetings, do a bunch of meetings with Disney or Warner Brothers or someone like that, and tried to sell some projects. Because once you get nominated for an Oscar, they think you're a genius, even though I wasn't a genius. Somehow the Oscar thing that says that I'm the next big Walt Disney, And I wasn't prepared for that. I just sort of went to the show and, well, that was fun. Let's go home. And that was a big mistake.
But I think one of the things that impressed me about your talk that I mentioned earlier is your advice about being an independent animator, right? And having control over your own destiny and control over the own thing, and not sort of working the studio system. So why, like, how has that been a decision that you made, and what is the advantages of doing that?
Well, I was making such good money, and then I started doing these commercials like NutraSweet and Trivial Pursuit and again, the Geico spot. And they were paying really well back then in the 90s. Commercials paid up, 60, 70, 100. One job I got $200,000. And back then, that was a lot of money. It's not around now. It's stopped now. But back then, I was doing pretty well. So I didn't really need to work for Disney. Plus, my sense of humor wasn't really geared toward Disney films. So as much as I wanted to work there as a kid, it didn't make sense to work for them now. So I decided not to move out to LA and show my portfolio. I decided to stay in New York because I like New York. It's a really interesting city. It's a lot of craziness going on. So I wanted to stay in New York and develop my work. And I did 5 shorts right after Your Face, and they were all big successes. I did How to Kiss, 25 Ways to Quit Smoking, Plymptons, One of Those Days, and a bunch of short gag films. And they were all, bought by Disney. I'm sorry, bought by MTV or BBC or Canal Plus, and I was doing really well, so I didn't need to really worry about joining a big studio. In fact, I probably would have gotten lost. I don't think I would have survived. Although Tim Burton definitely survived, and he kept to his style. He kept to his look and his sense of humor. So I shouldn't say that. Some people have survived. So I put all those short films and the Boomtown and some of the college experimental films on a video cassette, and it's about an hour. And I thought, holy cow! Within the last few years, I've made an hour's worth of animation. That's almost a feature film. Why don't I make one a feature? So I was really excited about that idea because, as far as I know, no one had ever made a one-man feature before.
Animation.
Animation.
Yeah.
So I called my musician friend, Maureen McKelleran, who did the music for Your Face, and we were in a band together, so we really liked the same kind of music. And I said, let's make a film like Yellow Submarine, only use American roots music, like country, western, Delta blues, rockabilly, jazz, surfing music, all the great American music. And we pitched it to a few people, but no one really bid on it. They thought it wasn't family oriented like animation was supposed to be. It wasn't Disney-esque. So I said, I'm going to do it myself. I did all the drawings. I did a lot of the coloring too, although we had some help coloring. Thank goodness. That would have been very difficult. And it was called The Tune. And I think it took us about 2.5 years, maybe 3 years to make. And this was the early 90s. I think I started in 1989. 89 to 90, 91, something like that. And we got into Sundance, which was really cool because Sundance at that time, it was just starting to get hot. Sex Lies and Videotape had played the year before. In fact, I think I was there with How to Kiss. So I'd been to Sundance before, but never with a feature film. And so the audience was great. We had a wonderful audience response, lots of applause and yells and screams and everything. And another cool thing that happened there, I was at the Filmmaker's party. And this nerdy guy comes running up to me and said, "Oh, man, Bill Plympton, I've seen all your films. I saw your video cassette. I know all your films front and back. You're the greatest. You're the greatest." And it turns out it was Quentin Tarantino. And he was there with Reservoir Dogs, which was the hit of the festival. Everybody was talking about Reservoir Dogs. The ear scene, everybody was freaking out about that. So we became friends, and we still keep in touch, although not a lot because he's in LA and I'm in New York. But anyway, we got a distributor, and it didn't do very well. They didn't have a lot of money. It's called October Films. But still, I was inspired that it really played a lot of theaters, and it did pretty well. It came out on video cassette. And I don't know, I'll tell you this video cassette story. I don't know if you heard it or not. So when the thing came out on video cassette, I was hoping to get, a big chunk of money because video was really big back then, Blockbuster and all that stuff. Right. And so they said, well, we only got $1,000 for it. $1,000? I mean, you're selling these video cassettes for $20 each, and I only get $1,000. And I was really not happy about that. And in fact, I lived in East Village then, and I was walking by a local bodega. And out in front of the bodega, they were selling The Tune on video cassette. And I said, "What are you doing selling this? This is my film. it was a black market film. I could tell because I think they took some stuff off. So it was pirated film. So I grabbed it, and the shop owner was this Korean guy. He didn't know. Wasn't involved in it. And he grabbed it back. And so we were pulling it, having a tug of war on St. Mark's Place in the village. And they called the cops. I said, good, call the cops, because this is pirated film. You don't have a right. You're taking money out of my pocket. And so a crowd gathered. It's the East Village, and they're all anti-authority kind of thing. And they started yelling, give them the video, give them the video, give them the video. And it was almost a riot. I wouldn't let go, and the shop owner wouldn't let go. And the cop said, you know what? You're going to have to get a restraining order if you want to do this legally. You can't just steal it. I said, but it's mine. It's black market. It's a pirated video. And so that was sort of the rough and tumble days of marketing my films, selling my films back then. It was pretty wide open stuff. And I never got the video back. He probably sold it. But he probably canceled the order. He probably didn't take any more Plympton films because he was afraid of getting another street fight.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was a big deal, black market videos and stuff, that was a big deal. And you were I remember actually when we were talking not long ago, it's like YouTube was starting to become a big thing, and you were like, I got to fight YouTube now. All this stuff, right?
Yeah, you're right. But John, the guy who you're talking to on the phone, he handles that. He makes sure nobody else is showing my film. And if he sees it online, he calls them up and says, you're doing something illegal, so you can't do that.
Right. I mean, your style of stuff is always, that's. I always get excited when I see something I've never seen before. I see something like that is something, that it was around that time when things were very interesting. There was, I think I mentioned it a couple times. Is I heard Nirvana at that point, and I was like, I've never heard any music like this. Something is going to happen in the music industry that's going to change. And then I saw your animation on Liquid Television. I was like, I've never seen anything like this. This is going to be completely different.
Yeah, those are the days. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, those are the days when MTV was really cool. I mean, everybody watched MTV, and not just for the music videos, but the cool animation and the video jockeys, and they did a lot of neat stuff. And I was sort of the golden boy. I didn't know that, but I was sort of the golden boy of MTV because they hired me to do a bunch of ecological shorts for them, and then for the music video awards, I did all the interstitials on that, and I met a lot of people lately who said MTV never used my name. I never got my name in there. And they said, oh, it's the color pencil guy. He's on again. I was known as the color pencil guy. And apparently I was quite well known, quite famous for that. And I only found out later that I had a following on MTV. So it was fun working for MTV.
For sure. One of the things I think that was interesting, obviously, and you mentioned you actually brought it up yourself, is like there was a people thought of cartoons and animation as something that is for kids, right? And then a lot of people sort of had this, and sort of you were one of the people that sort of broke that down in some ways. And some other people had done that as well, with heavy metal and things of that nature. But what are your thoughts about it now? Because I think it's becoming more and more popular for animation content that is reaching a more mature audience. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I've always followed those films, even earlier in my career, films like Yellow Submarine. I thought was a really great film. The style was just beautiful. Of course, the Beatles did it. And then Ralph Bakshi was doing it. And I met him not recently, but I've known him for a while. And he's really a great guy. He's a big fan. And I told him that if I would have known you were working on Fritz the Cat in New York when I moved here, I would have swept your floors for free. I would have paid you to sweep your floors because this would have been the opportunity where I learned how a film was made, but I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know that he was making his film there. But he was really an inspiration in terms of the subject matter and changing the audience. There was a lot of people, like you say, heavy metal and films like that really influenced me. Then the Japanese animation came in, and that was definitely adult. In fact, my film, I Married a Strange Person, was really influenced by a lot of the adult Japanese animation, the real S&M stuff, the violence and everything. So that helped change it. And I have to say that era, when I first started, the late 80s, was a lot of changes. A lot of things were coming in. Akira had opened to a huge audience. Disney started its comeback with Little Mermaid and Lion King. All of a sudden, animation was hot. Then MTV started showing a lot of animation videos. And then you started seeing, The Simpsons and Beavis and Butthead and people like that. So that late 80s, early 90s was really an interesting period. Ren and Stimpy was very popular. So that it was really kind of a revolution. People call it the second golden age of animation. Started in the late 80s. And that's right where I was starting out.
Yeah. I think there was definitely the 70s and early 80s with the Hanna-Barbera years were not necessarily the most productive days of animation.
I couldn't watch it. It was just broke my heart. It was so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts? I mean, anime now is obviously massively popular. People are consuming huge amounts of anime, especially in the United States is the number one importer of anime.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that passion and that?
I'm glad
that style.
I'm glad that they're making animation that's really popular. You're spreading animation around to the younger people, and I think that's a good thing. However, I think it's gone a bit far when everybody copies anime. And when I get young students coming in here looking for work and they show me anime, I'm really saddened because they lost their imagination. I want to see something, like you say, you've never seen before. That's what I'm looking for, something that's new and exciting and different, rather than copying bad anime, which it is. I mean, the walking, it's a formula. It's all for the walking and the hair on the forehead, and all these things are so formulaic. It's really boring to me. It's really disgusting. So I tell people if they want to work for me, show me something new. Show me something with a style that's different. And that's what it was.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that, I was looking at it. I was actually speaking to someone who's in Japan and is talking about anime and works on a lot of that stuff. And that their style is mainly based on economics. They're paid by the unit of animation that they create. So if they create fewer frames to create that much stuff, they can have an entire dialogue where you just see the back of a head. Right?
That's it. People accept it.
And so it's like, I'm going to make a lot of money on this because per minute I'm doing that. And they're not paid a huge amount of money to do it either, animation.
Very low paying job, animation.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that when I see your style, like I said, it's like, I can't believe you draw all those frames. And that's really kind of an incredible thing, right?
Well, I get up around 4:30, something like that, and go to the drawing board and draw. And then I come to the studio, which is here, you can't see it, but
right.
And then I do some drawing, also do phone calls and contracts and business stuff, and then I'll go home and I'll draw until 7 or 8, and I feel so good after that. It's really refreshing to draw all day. I just feel like I created something really special, and that's why I do it. I also watch movies while I'm drawing. usually movies I've seen before, some old movies from the 30s and 40s on TCM, and it's just very relaxing doing the drawings. I find it very comforting.
That's great. And I think that, I mean, obviously it was, you seem to, I remember actually you did mention that you liked a lot of old movies, and I can definitely see some inspiration from old movies and in your drawings and your style of your characters that are in there. What are some of your favorite films that inspired you in some way?
Well, I love a lot of the noir films. Postman always rings twice, and all those Humphrey Bogart films are great. A lot of the darker films where everybody's evil. That's what I like. Touch of Evil, classic, things like that.
That's great. That's great. So, I mean, you mentioned quickly about the economy of things. I mean, how is it? How are you able to do that? Obviously, your parents did have a bit of a point of it's hard to make money in this area. So, how did you manage to pull it off?
Well, I got a good start in the '90s with all those commercials and everything, and then when the internet came in, the price for commercials went down a lot. But I was always had work. I was doing, first of all, I've done a lot of shorts, and those keep selling over and over again. So the money keeps coming in, depending on how many shorts I sell or how many features I sell. But also, I do a lot of music videos, which I love. I love doing music videos. I still do a few commercials. I just did a Nike spot for the internet. I work on some documentaries. I do animation. A lot of times documentaries don't have footage of famous moments, and so they got to recreate it with animation. So I do some of that stuff. Also, I do a lot of personal appearances, like the Guadalajara Festival. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, that took a big chunk of my income off the table. Because I do travel to places. I charge speaking fees. I charge screening fees. I sell my merchandise at the event. So I usually make good money doing these appearances. And now with COVID, it was really not a good time. Now it's starting to come back. I've just been touring. I went to Prague. I went to Mendocino, did a show there, did a show in Sacramento. So now I'm starting to travel again and selling stuff. So it's getting a little bit better. But I think the real smart thing I did was I retained all my copyrights. I own all the films that I've made. And that way, when I sell it, I sell it for a year or 2 years, and I get it back, and I can sell it again. So it's a good way to maximize my profits. And I do encourage young filmmakers to try and hold on to their copyrights.
Yeah. I think that was something that you mentioned when I heard you talk about that. So that's great. Now I know you said your time is precious today, and you guys are very, very busy. I don't want to take up too much more of your time because and you were hoping to do it short. And I'm glad you gave me a little extra time. But this has been a fabulous talk, Bill. I really appreciate this. I'm obviously, like I said, I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'm also a huge fan of your advice that you give people about
Thank
stuff.
you.
So, really excited about that. And before we go, what are you excited about in terms of the future of animation? What are the things that you think are going to be exciting in animation in the future?
It looks like all of these internet systems like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and Apple are really going to take over the big share of the business. And I think that's good because, like you said, adult animation is a hard time getting to people, getting to audiences. But with the subscription venues, I think that they're more open to adult-oriented animation, and I think that's a
Yeah.
thing. I haven't done a deal at Netflix. I did pitch some ideas, but they turned them down. But I have some other ideas that I wanted to do. And then also I'm working on a brand new film called Slide that should be done next year sometime. That's why the studio's so busy trying to finish
Right.
that. And that's it's a cowboy comedy musical. It's sort of
Oh, cool.
Hank Williams kind of music on a cowboy movie. So I'm really happy with the way it looks, the way it's editing together, and I'm hoping that I'll have that out next year.
That's awesome. What have you heard of Love, Death, and Robots? And if you
I
have,
have,
what are your thoughts on that?
And I knew the guy who was running it, and I called him up. I said, I'd love to do something for you. And he said, well, we're all booked. We have all the artists. Okay. He was a fan. In fact, we were nominated for an Oscar together. I had Guide Dog, and he had Go for Broke. I've forgotten his name right now, but yeah, it's cool.
Are you talking about Tim Miller?
Tim Miller. Thank you.
Yeah, because I know Tim Miller pretty well as myself. Yeah. So.
And also, I think he likes computer animation. I don't think he likes hand-drawn animation. He's a computer guy.
He's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Death and Robots. I think it's a really good show.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's great. Again, thanks a lot for your time, Bill. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to at some point meeting up with you again.
Yeah, when next year when Slide comes out, let's talk.
Okay, that sounds great.
Very good.